Welcome to Moving with Life. This is episode number 19. I am Andy Acosta. My friends Bryan and Eddie Saenz will be joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for lending us your ears for the next hour and a half or so. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave reviews. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So episode 19, we had a great conversation. It was a lot of fun because of all the things we got to talk about. Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist that came out on the Joe Rogan Experience. So, gaining some information from him, we then tailed it into how it interacts with our lives, our personal lives, and what we're learning as we continue to grow and figure new things out. Things such as truth, social media, influence, and education, and how those two can tie together, and how those two are actually tied together, now in some of the school systems out in the world. We talk about execution of thought, the curse of knowledge, where knowledge is power, but sometimes knowledge can be a curse. So without further ado, here is Moving with Life.
And she's like, I missed you. Oh, me too, definitely. Everything he says is so funny. Oh, God bless. Is that working for you, the tape?
Yeah. Is it working?
Nice.
Okay, cool. That's good. Usually I say, oh man, what a week it's been. But for these past few days, maybe like 4 or 5, I started journaling 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. And I feel like I'm way more clear-minded through my day. And then closing out with 5 minutes, I just feel better. So if you guys have had a interesting week, you guys can start with that.
I've had an interesting week in the sense that nothing seems to be necessarily music-related dominantly. Like, I've been, doing music things, obviously, with, working on the album release stuff and details and all that goes into that release show and CD distribution, online distribution, and all that. It's been some pains in the ass with that one because of glitches on websites.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. It feels like it hasn't driven itself around music this week, necessarily. I think it's just because we didn't have gigs over the weekend.
Yeah, I even felt it on Wednesday a little bit. Like we went through practice, and for me, to be fair, I mean I was tired, but when I got there, it's like, man, maybe it's because we don't have gigs, so I feel like practices go a little bit different when we don't have when we're not preparing for a gig.
Much more relaxed. I didn't want to be too stern.
At
practice.
Yeah, I guess ultimately it probably was good, to just let that happen and still go over material. It's one of those things that I started listening to today. It's a video, and it's Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, and some other guy, and they basically give their what helps them or what gets them to be disciplined or whatever. And basically, at the end of the day, from all three of them, it's doing the things you need to do, whether you want to or not, but you still get them done because you need to get them. It's part of your in your case the music, the mission.
Right.
So we still go, even if it's going through the motions, but it's like exercising too. Even if you're going through the motions, you're still getting it done, no matter what outcome you're looking for, no matter how you're going into it.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to just keep on a steady path.
Yep.
And not take a week off just because we can.
Yeah. Because we end up way worse when we have any type of week off. Yeah, we definitely. I think we all come to that consensus of if we have a week, if we don't go to practice and then we have a gig that Friday, Saturday, or whatever, it's yeah, we're rusty as fuck.
Mm-hmm. Rusty, dusty. I don't know. Other than that, week's been good. I felt like I had a lot more personal lifetime this weekend, which is something I feel like I've been desperately lacking. It's been really frustrating for me, actually. I've had, I wouldn't say a couple of meltdowns over it, but I've just grown more frustrated than I ever usually am. I feel like I don't get frustrated very easily. And so I've grown frustrated a couple times, or I grew frustrated a couple times earlier in the week because I felt like my personal life was just not there, or didn't have moments to breathe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You definitely need that. I've figured that out, and because I think I told Bryan this was a while back where I was. It was like I think it was a span of 2 weeks where we had like consistent gigs, so we're doing that, and then I was working a lot for those 2 weeks, and it wasn't until like maybe halfway through, so like a 1 weekend to those 2 weeks that I realized that hey, like I need some alone time, like, and I wasn't gonna get it. I knew I had 7 days to go, and I just had things that on my calendar that didn't allow it, but after those 7 days, of course, I took advantage of it, but still to retract, it took until then because usually I always feel like I do better, or at least I feel I do better in a social setting when I'm interacting with whether it's you guys or with a band or at 9 Round wherever, that I'm always there. But then when I did it for 14 days, that's where I was like, oh shit, I just need a couple days to myself.
Chill out.
Yeah. Interesting. Super cool.
Know exactly how you feel.
Oh man.
So you know where we're coming from, Bryan.
Yeah.
Expand upon this.
I just feel like sometimes I'm out too much and I'm just talking to too many people and I need to like sort of recharge and kind of retract.
And you more than I feel like, because your introvertedness is unique. So
Like,
when go ahead.
I don't know. I've come to the conclusion that I'm a little bit of both, because I can be pretty social and pretty out there and stuff, and other times I'm just like, I don't want to talk to you.
So are you an introverted extrovert or an
I don't
extroverted
know.
introvert? You're probably an introverted extrovert.
Probably.
Introverted
so.
first before.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're feeling this way because you needed alone time. Well, I was feeling this way because I felt like I was not getting enough time, like, to see people that I wanted to see. Like, and it really wasn't even like the band thing, because I don't really mind being busy with the band thing. It's really more just work, like substitute work, and then like during the day, and then teaching at night, and then teaching music lessons at night. So that's kind of like my schedule's kind of picked up, which is great. But like I'm there teaching every night till like 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the evening, at which point it's either like I go see, the girl that I've been seeing who I really want to see like a lot.
Yeah.
Or I go like see family, and then like it's just like frustrating, like not being able to just have time to like either do those together or do those separately. It's really frustrating.
It's an interesting mix, nonetheless, and like I said, I guess just before this, where we're transitioning into this. It's not necessarily a new mindset, but it's a fresh mindset for us, where we're starting to find those specific people that are going to be around for a while, and you can kind of pinpoint who they are, and so you start wanting to, or you start almost needing to like spread out your time between 2 to 3 pillars, as opposed to maybe all work or all career chasing or something like that, or even compared to being in college, where you're, for the most part, you're just centralized on that. And in your guys' case, the frat and then college, school, whatever, and then make sure you do all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, like my mom was telling me, like maybe you just need to manage your time better. I don't know how to tell you to manage your time, and it's like, well. It's like, I don't know if it's necessarily a time management issue, because I can't control when I get out of work. Like, I can, like, ask for, like, specific times off or whatever, or be like, oh, I only want to teach until, like, this time of day or this time of day. But
Right.
But I also, A, like, need the income, and says, like, B, that, it supports me, so I can't really get as mad as I want about it.
Right. Yeah, it seems like, well, if that's the case, it seems like you're going to have to, like, for anything business related, you're gonna have to really dedicate. Let's just say an hour in the morning, then an hour at night, or something. I mean, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, where you're gonna have to allocate whatever. Okay, as opposed to, this is the way I did it for my team challenge. As far as the food intake, I usually you're like, oh, what can I eat? What can I eat? And instead, I gave them a list of what you can eat. So when you're in this case, it may be where, okay, what free time do I have? And I need to fill up every single hour, or at least every 30 minutes, with something to make sure I get everything done in the day. That may be the situation. And that may include also waking up earlier, just to get that 30-minute
Well, I mean,
in or something.
I get my work done fine. It's the personal part of life that's not like going great, that I don't have too much time for, that I wish I did have more time for. Like the work part's fine. I get a ton of work done when I need to. It's just the it's really mostly the evenings, because like I need to like get home, and like my dad's been out a lot, so I've got to like get home and like be the man of the house, and then like, you know, but then I've also got like, you know, my life and my relationship outside of that, so like, you know, it's just like it's been an interesting like trying to find the balance kind of situation.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Okay. I got you there. There's actually this book that I didn't necessarily read it, but I got to see the movie. It's actually on YouTube. It's called Bless Me Ultima. It's a book written by Rodolfo Anaya, and I was at high school a couple of days last week, and they were reading the book, and then on Thursday, we got to watch the movie, and I actually really enjoyed the movie to the point to where I want to read the book. Like it seems really interesting. And speaking of, you know, balancing your Eddie Signs' personal life with the family life, you know, your parents. There's a quote, and I wrote this down because it's kind of it's definitely relevant for me as well. And Andrew, so these three brothers went off to fight. I believe, I'm assuming it's like World War II, or it's World War II or Vietnam. It's one of those two wars. But they go and come back, and two of their brothers want to go to Santa Fe to work on their own. Like they want to go out and adventure, and they want to earn their own living. The father's plan when they came back home was to move to California. Like the father's dream is to move to California with his sons, and then his sons go work with him. And I don't know if it was a road. No, it was a highway work. So they were working on highways at the time in California. So that was the dad's dream. So they get back, and Andrew talks about. He's like, what about our folks? What about our parents? And the brother's like, well, what about them? Like, we'll send them money. You know, it's like, what about dad's dream? Well, they said we can't build our lives on their dreams. We can't be tied down to old dreams. And I wrote that down specifically. I was like, man, it seems so relevant. And like now that you're talking about that, it's very relevant, because it's that push and pull of like, okay, like the only way to have a family is to go out and, you know, talk to a girl and build that relationship. But yet you have that tug at home, and I'm going through it too, where it's like, but I argue for my points. Like, well, I mean, it doesn't make sense how, you know, it works. It's like, if you want me out of the house eventually, then I need to get out of the house. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I tied in, because actually the premise of the book is like totally not. But that's what I got from it, because it's like, man, these three brothers, they come back, and two of them go, and they end up leaving. They end up leaving Santa Fe, and then the one brother stays, and the youngest brother, who's like 6, he's like, why didn't you go? And the brother who stayed, he's like, well, why? Like, he's like, I already got a job. You know, like I'm good here. You know, and he didn't necessarily mean either to move to California either, but, you know, he was fine. But the other two brothers, they left. You know, they left. Like, no, like our dreams aren't parallel with my parents. You know, like, or their parents. It's not the same. Like you, and even the mom in the video, at least in the movie, the mom's like, you guys were gone for so long, and now you guys are finally back, and now you want to leave again. Like, you want to leave again. It's like, but yeah, that's what you do. That's how you go and you make a living. And, you know, and it's also, I guess we could say it's just like a traditional thing, like just a way of family. Because at least for me, when my grandparents were alive, like it was one uncle's house, my grandparents' house, and then another uncle's house. Like they stayed there, you know, where some other one, like my mom, my aunt, and some, like I have other family in California, so they went their own route, you know. But then there's those few people, you know, those few siblings that stayed behind. Anyways, that's all I got from that, because it seems like it's very relevant, and this book, it's like, man, you know, I'm not saying how do we, you know, combat it, but I mean, I feel like it's a worthy conversation to have with parents, especially if you're going through it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's been some conversations going on that, but I don't want to get too into it.
No, it's fine. No, absolutely not. No, I just say that because it's just a relevant point that I came up with to me last week, and I was like, man, like how crazy that it's in a book, but yet, you know, it's also in real life. You know, I just don't read fiction books. I really stick to nonfiction, but in this case, you know, tying in a fiction book to a real life situation, you know, that's my intention, was just tying that together.
For sure. Jordan Peterson. Jordan.
Read that, Eddie Signs. Read the top. Read the top.
That's why I was saying it. Jordan Peterson, millennials change the world properly. Love it. Yeah, I've watched that video like 3 times.
If you wanna give some context, we can dive in.
Sure. So Jordan Peterson was recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, and so I'd already seen the previous episode that he was on, or the last time I guess before this one that he was being interviewed by Joe, and I really enjoyed that one, though that one was more like the science of psychology.
Yeah.
It seemed more directed towards that from my memory anyway. This one was more, a lot more about social issues, specifically a lot about transgenderism and the political climate surrounding that. So he's really just going off on a lot of stuff, but he's making a lot of sense with it. Like I don't know. I was so addicted to that episode. I listened to it like 5 times in a week, or this past week really, because like it's just so good, and he just talks so much truth.
Could you give a couple points of like maybe some stuff that stuck with you like specifically?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring some up from my memory right now, because right now I'm like this is like I'm on like my second time in for the Jocko one.
Okay.
But so my mind's completely changed.
Yeah.
Do you have any like thing you wrote down from Changing the World that might?
Well,
or anything?
because he talks about truth. That was the main thing that I focus my listening on, and this is great because if millennials want to change the world, you should do it properly. And the first point of this, because this isn't from the Joe Rogan, this is that second
Right.
video you sent me, right?
Right.
So the first main point is starting with yourself. Orient yourself. What other points do I have here? Aim for the highest good, which starts with the self. Then how does that good gonna go towards your family? Then if you put that good with your family, then how's that gonna transition to society? And then from there, how is it going to transition to the world?
Right.
And basically, you aim for the ultimate good. And that's why, like, even with the transgender stuff, like, he's not against that. Like, you are what you are. You're gay. You're bi. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is the truth of the matter of fact and the biology behind it, like the science behind, like, because I don't know. He was talking about even on Joe Rogan, where talking about that unicorn, that gender unicorn, where like. It's literally a unicorn, Bryan. They're giving these kids, it's a survey. Essentially, it's a survey, and there's like 4 or 5 different like things, but it's like, how do you feel? Are you masculine, feminine, or other? What kind of people do you like? Men, women, or other? And they're feeding this information to these kids in Canada right now, like in the education system. So like, he's talking about that and how some of these organizations are not. They're basically putting off, and they're saying that biology is not real. In essence, that biology is not real, and it's you can quote unquote be whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, he talked a lot about like the spectrum of human beings, which makes more sense to me as far as like addressing what the truth of the matter is. Because like if you just okay, so forget females for a second. Let's talk about males. You have like very masculine males, then you have like very feminine males, and it's just like there's a spectrum there, right? And it doesn't necessarily make someone's like sexuality change. Like there's feminine dudes who are still straight, but they're just feminine dudes. They like to cook. I don't know what they do, but anyway, but like there's like a spectrum of different human beings, and I totally get that. And the same for females. Like there are like masculine females and feminine females, and then a lot of stuff in between. So like there's a big spectrum of human beings and how like we are as people and as persons. But like as far as biology goes, it's like it's pretty apparent that we have 2 kinds of things here going on. We got a male and a female going on. It's pretty damn true at this point. And he chalks it up to like, that's how we've structured society. We've structured society around men, women, right? Because that's what we are. Those are the 2 genders we're dealing with here, right? And that's how we've built society. And he goes off into a talk about how like structures of society can be like a tyrant, can feel like a tyrant at some times, but it's also a benevolent thing, like a nurturing, motherly thing that like takes care of us, right? Like there are reasons we have these structures in society. And that's one thing he said that really stuck with me. Then they kind of go off on a tangent somewhere after that, talking about how, whatchamacallit, like the feminist guys that are just really like sketchy, like they're like overtly feminist.
Yeah, and how it could be in a sense, like they're using that to like get girls. Like they
Right.
use that to become a part of the group to then use the game to in their favor in a
Right.
sense. You know?
And well, Jordan Peterson says like, and Joe is like, why do you think they do that? And Jordan's like, he's like, well, he's like they just feel like they have no chance in the social hierarchy of things.
So
Right.
I pulled up the picture real quick. It's like if anybody listening, if you type in the gender unicorn, it's gonna pop up. It's the only thing that'll pop up. So the first thing to ask kids is like gender identity, and is it male, woman, girl, or female, women, girl, male, man, boy, or other. They give you 3 options to choose from, and then gender expression: are you feminine, are you masculine, or other? And the third one is sex assigned at birth: female, male, or other / intersex. And who are you physically attracted to? Women, men, or other? Who are you emotionally attracted to? Women, men, or other?
That I don't like that. Emotionally attracted to. I'm emotionally attracted to a lot of people, and I don't know how they mean that. I don't know if they mean that in a romantic way, but like I'm emotionally attracted to my friends who happen to be a mix of both male and female.
Right. And they're basically trying to like just divert these kids down like
It's so
a
strange.
path. It's so insane that this is happening in education. I mean, and one thing that I don't know if it's Jordan or Joe that mentioned this, but they're aiming for like anybody under 10. Like that's and so what I see is that's trying to like essentially, opinion. This is brainwashing a generation. They're 15 years younger than us.
Yeah.
15, 16 years younger than us. So that's the next generation after Gen Z, and who knows what's gonna happen when they get to high school and college. Like that's so crazy.
Sorry, I've got to go
Yeah.
back to this for a
Go-
second
no, yeah, go-
before
go-
we're taking a look at the unicorn. But the other thing that stuck with me from the Jordan Peterson episode of Joe Rogan was he was talking about like how men compete with each other. And he's like, well, it's like, how do men compete with each other? Like we're competing to woo the lady, right? To woo women, right?
Right.
And so how do we go about doing that? Was like we like try to dominate each other like via strength or like just like spots in our lives, wealth or like other things, spiritual wellness, emotional wellness, like just like anything and everything to get an edge up over other guys. For what reason? It's not because we're mad at each other, but it's because we want to woo the girl better than the other person does,
Yeah.
And it's just like it's like the way we're designed, And then, well, how do he talks about how do females like seek like men, like how do they seek partners? And it's like, well, it's kind of based off of all that. So like it makes sense, right? That's like in our DNA pretty much about how
Right.
that works.
Yeah.
And so he relates that back to like the guys who are just overtly feminist and are very sketchy for being so.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's like the reason they're like that is because they know that they have no chance in the hierarchy. They have no chance.
Yeah.
So I was like,
because then you have the full on like just mutants that are they're and I wouldn't even say necessarily the strongest, but just maybe the healthiest. And they're the quote unquote natural born leaders, or they're the people who wanna lead, or or they've been in a leadership position since through school because of sports and whatnot. So they're at the top of the hierarchy essentially, and where these guys are using this route because they're not, and they'll never be at that top end of the hierarchy, and so they go. I wouldn't say it's the easy route, but I mean you can essentially develop leadership skills by finding the right people, But I would have to argue that also goes to guidance. If this is what they're getting fed in school, then yeah, I don't want to say shit out of luck, but they're definitely being driven down a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very similar to like standardized testing, I would think. Where you're letting this one thing like identify you and put you in a certain class, and if you're GT or not, if you're pre-AP, if you're AP worthy, and then compared to the regular kids. These kids in regular classes, quote unquote, especially here in Texas, because that's my experience. They know, they're well aware of where they stand in the hierarchy, and they don't give a shit. That's why they don't give a shit. That's my opinion, is why they don't give a shit.
Yeah. And even some of it kind of came back to Jocko, to the Jocko podcast, which I'm like on my second listen in right now. Mm-hmm. And so Joe had Jocko on right for the second time. So at one point in the conversation, they're talking about like friends they know that are like addicted to video games or whatever. And it just goes back to that. I think Jordan Peterson actually kind of covers it somewhere, like in another video, not in the Joe Rogan podcast, but in some other video I saw of him where he's talking about, is like, why do like why do boys like or why do guys or even like full on adults like why are they so obsessed over video games that it consumes their entire life? And it's because like they've invested so much time into it that they have like all these like fantasy relationships, right? Like they're like a hero in a game, like like in a third person game, like in
Right.
let's just say Call of
Yeah.
Duty, right?
Mhm.
Like you're the hero because you're like you're winning. You're maybe like fighting for freedom in the
Right.
war era
And
or whatever.
I mean, you can
But-
also say like let's say like a dragon game, or I don't know anybody.
or
anything about
one
games.
like
We're
Zelda.
saving the queen. Yeah, something like that. Where
Yeah.
you're saving the queen. You're on a mission to slay the dragon or whatever. It gives you that.
Right.
Which we can tie that to Wild at Heart.
That's exactly where I was
you know,
going to
we
go.
can go that route eventually. But yeah, in general, like just adding on to what Eddie is talking about, as far as the video games give them that hierarchy to be on top.
Right.
Of,
But it's all fantasy, which is where the problem lies, and that's why they're playing it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day, instead of like leading actual, fulfilling lives in reality. But then again, that's where it comes back to, well, what's reality and what's imagination? Because if we created video games, it's like some part of it's real. Not saying like the experience of it, but like
the imagination part, I guess.
Right.
Just the creation, the artistry behind it
right.
is probably genuine, and it's like, oh, okay.
It's just getting philosophical for no reason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're good.
But yeah, no, a lot of it really does tie back to Wild at Heart because those are all things we're supposed to and meant to be doing in real life. That's in our DNA. Can't change it. Don't know why you'd want to. I mean, no offense if you want to, though. I don't really care. I'm not going to judge anybody here.
Yeah, well, even one of the points you brought up in that second video that you sent me is speaking truth. That was another one. Where you're the manipulator, and the example he gave is being a manipulator to have a sexual partner for the night. Impulsive pleasures, having that totalitarian like mindset, even a mindset of tyranny, because you're the guy, you're the masculine, the guy taking over, right? Yeah. Versus the highest good, saying things that make you feel stronger, but that are truthful, listening to others. And I put this in brackets. I put all results are best under the particular circumstances. And that part is only, he's saying like, people say good luck, bad luck. Well, it doesn't matter. Whatever happened at that moment, whether it's good or bad at that moment, it's meant to be like that no matter what. And then you then adapt, make your next decision to move forward with whatever you're doing. But the aim is always the highest good. Speaking truth, that part.
Yeah, I think the speaking truth thing definitely speaks to me. No pun intended. But just because I definitely feel that some people are just so caught up in like a way of thinking that they're not taking time to be truthful to themselves. Yeah. I wish I could come up with an example right off the bat.
Well, one thing I'm gonna add on to is one thing that he says, like, if you lie, and I put if you, he said if you lie, and I put if you have to lie. I underlined have. I made that bold. If you have to lie, it may be damaging to your soul, because then that corruption allows a consequence to then come to fruition as they may, because you're already in the bad. So if something bad happens from your manipulation, from your corruption, then you shouldn't expect anything good anyways. And that goes back to lying, not speaking truth.
Yeah. Well, I guess one analogy that kind of comes to the top of my head is like, it's not really happening nowadays, at least not as often. I mean, a year ago it was definitely a lot more, I guess, like prevalent on the news. But the whole like cop thing, like where there was just like a slew of stories about, cops like, allegedly taking advantage of their power and like killing unarmed people or whatever, like that whole, media frenzy they had for about a year with that. It's kind of calmed down, but
thank
anyway.
Thank God it's kind of calmed down. I mean, it's relatively calmed down.
No
Jesus
kidding,
Christ.
though.
Like, I feel maybe we can agree is like at some point it seemed like it was going to go on forever.
Seriously.
It felt like it, at least for me, it felt. And now, as we're talking about it, it's like, yeah, it has calmed down, which is a good thing. It's kind of like...
Yeah, it's an awesome thing.
It's gone out of the media for now.
Yeah, it's great. But anyway, like some people, as far as maybe like they're not really speaking truth, like, it's like, okay, they're trying to make this, another story about, slamming on a cop because he had to, use a firearm and he shot an unarmed dude. But maybe it was an unarmed dude that was like coming on him to attack him, in which case, it's a justified shooting.
Right. Yep.
And, so, I mean, I don't know. Like, some people just seem to be really illogical about some things, and they're just so caught up in the social justice cause of it, which is great. It's great to, like, feel like, you want things to be done like with justice, it's awesome. Not like discrediting that, but you have to be truthful about whether this actually happened a certain way or not, and you have to be willing to accept others' like perceptions and others, like ideas and stories, and then use that to formulate and bounce off of your own.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be like super close-minded
Right.
close-minded about it to the point where you're more in danger of lying to yourself about the situation, about what's going on.
Yeah, because we've talked about that where if you repeat something enough, you begin to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And even one thing that's mentioned in the Joe Rogan podcast with Jordan Peterson was where for the first time ever in Jordan's history, where he didn't get that grant, that money fund, and it might be because he's just doing away with the whole PC thing. He's like, no, truth. I'm seeking truth. That's all I care about. That's all I give a shit about. I don't care about, like what I said earlier. What he said is, I don't care if you're gay, if you're trans, whatever. But the truth. You cannot say biology isn't real. You cannot be promoting this stuff if that's false. It's not even an opinion. It's completely false.
Yeah.
There's no justification to that, and that's what drew me in from the Joe Rogan podcast. And now I haven't gone back to actually take notes on that one because I stopped. But then you sent me this video, so I just kind of just went on it. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. But I mean, definitely a new person that Jordan Peterson. I had never heard. I mean, I've obviously seen his name because of Joe Rogan, because of JRE. But last week it was me and Bryan, and I brought up Neil Strauss, Ramit Sethi, like some of these guys that are quote. I mean, they're new. I mean, people. I would say people know them around the world. That's why they're in Tools of Titans. They're obviously known. Tim Ferriss knows who they are. But it's cool that these past 2 weeks have been over like new people. Like we're talking about new things, because I know I've been trying at least to relate how I'm using Jocko's mindset as far as extreme ownership and ego check and all that stuff, and then Tim Ferriss as well. And Gary Vaynerchuk, and now it's like Jordan Peterson, Neil Strauss, Ramit said, like new names that maybe listeners haven't heard before, or maybe you guys hadn't heard before up until now. I know Neil Strauss was a big one last week. I don't know if you've had a chance to hear it yet, our podcast, but we got pretty deep into Neil Strauss towards the end of the podcast last week. But yeah, Jordan Peterson, man, such a brain that's amazing to pick.
Yeah, I was super into it. As I was saying, I listened to it like 5 times in this past week, but it was just so refreshing more than anything to hear a guy just speak some truth, and just unashamed, just speaking it, dropping it. And
have you tried to emulate any of that? Just consciously going through anything and being like, okay, being in a mental pickle and then deciding, the ladder of truth.
I don't know. I feel like I'm usually okay about being honest. I feel like I'm pretty honest with myself and pretty honest with people around me about how I'm feeling and such. So I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there are moments where I could be better about it, because I'll definitely have times where I'm faulty. But I don't know. It's just refreshing to hear him talk about truth, especially with some of these political topics and gender topics and all this stuff. It's man, someone just gets it, and it's just it just makes sense. And he has such a well constructed background and knowledge about everything, because he's a clinical psychologist,
right?
And he's not just some random dude. He's studied this and read on philosophy and has learned psychology and has studied majorly about all these things.
Yep. And
he just relays all of this knowledge in a very truthful, very simple to understand, no bullshit kind of way. Yep. But he's also just so nice about it too.
Yeah. Well, if you because did you listen to the JRE episode, or did you watch it on YouTube?
Listened.
Okay, if you watch him on the JRE at the beginning, he's there with his hand on his chin. He's kind of just there, and Joe Rogan's like, "Hey man, how's it going, whatever." And then he's like, "You're in quite a predicament, but yet you look so calm." Along those words, right? Because he's literally I mean, no one can see now, but the guys can see me. Whereas he's just kind of there, and you can see it in his face, so you can read it where, his brain is working, but he's just if you can't read faces, if you don't know how to read faces. Not that I'm a pro, but I'm working on it, and I work on it every day. That's one of the things I work on every day. But you just see his face, and you can see his brain working because his eyes are tuned in a certain way. But yet his calm tone is just so calm. It's chill. It's super chill.
Yeah.
And very articulate too.
Yeah, very articulate, and he just has such a nice way about things. The way he feels about it is exactly the way I feel about it. I don't care how you lead your life, whether you're straight, gay, transgender. I don't care. That's not an ultimate judge of you as a person in my mind. Like, you know, it's just like how you treat other people is really what it comes down to for me. How great of a human being are you? You know, I don't really care what like gender or sexuality you identify with, as long as you're doing good unto others. And that's just like where he seems to be coming from too. Like, you know, he's like, I don't like care if you're, you know, transgender or whatever. It's like, I just want you to be like honest with yourself and like honest about like what's going on. It's like, yeah, I identify with that.
Right. Yeah, because it's perfect because we're actually moving along on these notes really good. So the third point is educating yourself. That's the third point he brings up on that individual YouTube video. He talks about reading and writing, and if when you learn to write, and I have to say, he brings up rhetoric and humanities, like you know, those types of literatures and Englishes that you can study. And now I think for those if you don't go to school for English, and you go to school for college, I feel like this particular learning that he's talking about, learning through writing, occurs after you graduated. Because I know now whenever I'm writing a blog or even in this journal that I'm doing, and I'm doing 5 minutes in the morning. As soon as I wake up, that's the first thing I do. No social media, no nothing. I get out of bed. I set my stopwatch. I open my journal. Write 5 minutes, no more, no less. I literally put I'll finish the sentence or I'll put the pen down depending on where I'm at the 5 minutes. Do that. But even with that, as I'm writing, that fluency of like thought it's like it's a tool. You know, it's a muscle that you and it ties into like you, Eddie, because you write. You know, you write music. It's the same idea. The idea of writing and learning to write and then using that to progress in whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I do that every day myself. I've been doing it ever since it was like pretty much like instilled in me to do it, like taking songwriting classes. So yeah, it's like journaling is something I do just about every day. But yeah, and free writing especially.
Yeah. Yeah, because I told Bryan, like, man, because I was like maybe 2-3 days in and I already felt just a difference. It was actually Thursday to be specific. No, Thursday? No, it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday to be specific because I wrote that morning. I went to work, and then I went to jiu-jitsu. And as soon as jiu-jitsu ended, I felt a certain, like, just wavelength of, like, smooth, like, just a smooth wavelength just kind of come over me. And my mind was in a particular just space. It was just in a particular space. And I told Bryan, like, man, I wonder if that's what it was. You know, releasing thoughts in the morning, whatever that monkey mind is, and then going to jiu-jitsu because you have certain things to focus on, which is really life and death in that situation. You know you're not going to die, but you're still in that mindset, right? So doing that. And then that leads to, or what I'm going to lead it to, is something that Jordan says, arguments move the world forward. But, and this is continuing this, if, and I put this in brackets, if the argument is tight, lucid, well-constructed, carefully thought through. And that's what continuing this conversation is like that. It's like, yes, you know, you can't argue that biology isn't real, and maybe we're just gonna go off this. We're just gonna use this because it's not mind blowing, but it does boggle my mind.
Yeah.
To try to erase something, and I kind of tie it to Interstellar, where they're like, oh, the moon landing wasn't real, and whatever. You know, like they portray that like, sir, your daughter, you know, she's saying the moon landings are real, and we found out that they're not, quote unquote, and it's like, man, you in this case of biology, you cannot. I don't feel you can say that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to discredit what's been proven for years and years and years and years and years. But I don't know. The main thing that bothers me with today's, at least our generation, is as far as how people argue. Maybe it's not just a generational thing. Like I think I've experienced this. Sorry, I think I've experienced this with a vast number of individuals. Of all ages.
Yeah.
But
right,
like
yeah,
where people just argue to just make their statement, and you know they're just listening to reply and not listening to understand. I think we've talked about that before somewhere, but that
somewhere specifically exactly that. Yeah.
That specifically aggravates me the most because that's not how you go about an argument. You don't go about like shouting your viewpoint. You try to understand the other one, and then not only that, but you know how you win an argument, right? It's like you win an argument by asking the other individual questions and like probing them with questions until they realize that their argument is invalid or that their points, until they like come to a conflict, to a dissonance with their own argument that they can't defend it, and they see the faults in their own argument.
Right.
So that's the way you win an argument. You don't even like have to shout really your opinion. You just got to ask the right questions to make them realize that there's faults in their argument.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing is like something that I don't know if it was Josh Waitzkin or Remy. It's one of them two for sure that they talk about with Tim Ferriss about if the person you're talking with. In this case, I think it had to be Josh Waitzkin because he would train with dirty jiu-jitsu players, right? So in one of the tournaments, he was going, I think, against a Russian, and he was just trying to. The Russian was like he was a dirty player, right? He was just dirty and whatever, and Josh's, I guess, retaliation was smiling back at him. So he said he basically had him on the floor crying like a baby at the end because he was smiling after everything. After every single round, he was just smiling and keeping that dichotomy of, okay, if this guy's getting lit, his emotions rising, you do the opposite. You tone it down, talk nice and calmly. You don't yell or you don't get aggravated yourself. Because imagine that, like, I think it was Remy that says, like, man, like, that's pretty it's crazy enough to train with dirty players and then you meet like one of those real dirty players in a tournament. So there's it's a game for everybody, right? And but yeah, doing that. And I know I do that now. Even when I talk to my team for this challenge, I said I can't motivate you through yelling. I'm like, that's not my angle. I'm like, I can give you your tools. I can be here every day. If you need anything, you can contact me. But I'll rarely yell. And like more and more now, I've been yelling less at the gym. Like there's just no space for it because it's not effective if everybody's yelling.
Yeah, and then people don't like getting yelled at either.
Yeah, it's like, man, like
doesn't work for everybody.
Exactly. And for some people it does, so I get it, and for some people it doesn't.
Right.
And for the most part, there's definitely a centralized like blinders going straight forward, saying, "Oh yeah, you need to motivate through yelling and this and that." And it's like, now I've seen high school students give up on their coaches because the coach yells too much. So I was like, no, to me that is false because I've seen it in kids. And if you go into a classroom and you yell at them and they talk back to you, it obviously is not their angle. You have to flank. You have to find the right flank, the right thing to get their attention.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Going back to where we started from this, the arguments move the world forward.
Arguments move the world forward.
So true.
And I wrote that in quotes because that's from Jordan himself. Another cool point was, because usually for me, I try to have at least 3 good reasons to maybe do something or make a decision or anything relevant, right? I try to have 3 things that solidifies that, And Jordan says you should have 5 rationales. I was like, damn, like having 2 more rationales for everything else, like, or from here on out. And like I haven't consciously tried it because I'm still trying to like, just the facts. To me, I've been so quote unquote used to having 3 good reasons. But now you have to come up with 5. And I think, depending on the situation, 5 can be, a lot. Could be.
Mm-hmm. Could be. I like the part where he talks about, like, like we got all these younger generation people, like, complaining about how the world is, like whether it's the economy or the political situation in this country right now or whatever. And he's like, you can't go and complain about this really complex thing that you do not understand when you cannot, like, clean up your room.
Yes, I recall that part. I don't remember the details, but I do recall that part. You cannot do that. And that was one thing that made me, I'm like, damn it, my room's like, like people can walk in, but it's not the best. I am trying to declutter, and I that's why I posted shit on eBay and on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat to try to get rid of some of this stuff. But I mean, it's stagnant, so it's like, well, it's not moving, then it's not moving. I can't do anything but keep promoting and keep pushing, for all intents and purposes, products to eBay and, social media.
Right.
But yeah, I do remember that. I was like, damn it. I looked around like, shit. I'm like, well, at least I clean up when the guys come over. So,
well, he's so right talking about, like, well, the economy is this majorly complex thing, and just calling it complex feels like an understatement. It's totally complex. Mm-hmm. Like, it's beyond that. And like same thing with how the world operates and functions, But and with that being said, I feel like there's definitely a lot of people, especially in our generation at the moment, could just be where we're all at in life, where we have, like, we see all these problems and complaints, and we just, at the good of our hearts, like at the core of things, just want to solve it. But everyone's just so set, it feels like, on their ways, whether that way is like left or right, Republican or Democrat or whatever. Like, there just seems to be that, like, I guess, like, that two-sidedness, which really bothers me, because I don't think there are answers in either side. I think it's much more, I think it's much more than that,
Well, one thing that I'm going to try to, or not try to, but one thing I'm gonna kind of tie in is, as far as it being like, there's no black or white. It's pretty much a gray, with my team challenge. So yesterday, the 20th, was the official first day of the team challenge. I got my 5 on time, and then another client signed up at the last minute, which is cool, because I hadn't talked to her. I honestly, I filled up my team as soon as I could, and then I started helping other teams fill up their team. I started helping other teams fill up their teams, because I wanted everybody to have a team. Because at some point, like there was a question like, if a certain trainer didn't meet like the minimum to have their own individual team, we're gonna merge teams. And I was like, hell no, I ain't gonna merge. Like, no, like I want this to be my own little 6-week experiment for myself too, because like if I can implement the things I've learned of leadership, if I've learned them well, then things should go well. Now there's gonna be things that maybe I didn't foresee, unmitigated things, details that I might have overseen, but in general, definitely using it to also evaluate myself. Anyway, so that started yesterday, and one of my main points that I talked to him about once we were done with like the requirements that need the pre-challenge requirements, I brought up was that they need to do something every single day, because a lot of the other teams are going to be focusing on either working out like on Saturdays or Sundays and having like a team workout and whatever, and I'm like, I guarantee you will see results if you do a little bit every day. And that's that gray area, as opposed to doing, like in this case, as opposed to doing one team workout every Saturday for 6 weeks. That's only 6 workouts of like team workouts. And the thing is that you need to do something. At least my argument is that you need to do something every day. So there's no black and white saying, oh, if you come every Saturday, you're gonna get results. No, if you do something every day, you're going to get results. And the next little metaphor that I came up with, I'm like, you can't eat bad for 5 days and expect to have results with eating 1 day good, or 6 bad days and 1 good day. Right. To me, it's the equivalent of your workouts. You have to work out 7 days a week, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, okay. But, there's no black and white. It's a little bit every day. And I'm working on it too. As far as my stuff, which we went off like on a whole fucking podcast two episodes ago. But that's my whole point, is that, guys, there's no black and white. There's no one solution. It's a number of solutions. And actually, that yesterday morning, Saturday, I took the book For Our Body. I'm like, if you want to know, I'm like, it's in that book. Yeah. I'm like, you guys can go read it. You guys can go buy it. And I actually had one client. She's like, hey, what book? And she took a picture of it so she can go get it. I'm like, good for you. Whatever. But I'm like, half the stuff is derived from that, and then like, quote unquote, the leadership stuff is based off extreme ownership and the stuff I've been reading. But yes, so that's all I'm tying. I just wanted to tie into that, is that there's for the most part you have to play the middle. You have to be able to that's the only way you're gonna understand, because you have, like Eddie, let's just say you have point of view A, and Bryan has point of view B, but you guys got to meet at point of view F, because that's what just ties into everything. Because maybe you come to agree to disagree, and that's it. But you cannot leave out what's fact, from both sides.
Yeah.
Which is the basis of this conversation, anyways. What we talk about, what you've mentioned, we've mentioned a few times of that period.
Is agreeing to disagree just a really like nice way of saying I don't really give that much of a shit? Like,
most of the time, I feel like it is. I think because I've been guilty of doing that once or twice, where I'm like, well, let's agree to disagree, because, and really, I've explained my point of view of an argument. Where and it's what we've talked about before, like, if it's just a yelling match and there's really no like objective to try to understand the other perspective, or to try to get the person to understand that their logic is flawed or their argument is flawed, then it's pointless. Like, why are you arguing? Like, right. Either one person is too stubborn or too set in their ways to really try to understand the other point of view. Even try, whether it's flawed or not, I feel like you at least have to try to see where they're coming from, and if you understand, or you get them to understand where it's a flawed argument, then mission accomplished. But when you say let's agree to disagree, it's because you really don't care to get them there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm gonna tie in. This was from episode 210, still using Tim Ferriss's podcast. Was Adam was in this situation, and he gets asked, what will it take for me to convince you otherwise? Like, to convince you against your own thought. And then Tim was like, "Man, that's a great question." And Adam's like, that's the best question you can ask, because from there it's the Neil deGrasse Tyson thing too, where you get to a certain point of there's no agreement. Okay, I'm just gonna go get a burrito. That you have a that's what Tim Ferriss said.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get a burrito. You
5
guys,
minutes.
you guys have a good day.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, the whole when it comes down to, okay, that's a really great question is, it's like, well, what's it going to take for me to convince you otherwise? And if the answer is nothing, then you're never going to be moved. So forget it. Go get a burrito.
Let me go get a burrito.
Yeah.
That's what Tim Ferriss like. Oh, I'm gonna go get a burrito. Whatever. And they then continue the conversation, but.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, it goes back to, I know when I'd mentioned that is Neil's thing was pretty much that, and then saying like Neil thinks that if an argument is not won by either side within 5 minutes, then no side wins.
Yeah.
The argument's done.
Yes.
I don't know. Some people, I've told that to some people, and some people have responded back saying like, no, well, 5 minutes isn't really enough time for either side to present their points. It's like, well, if you can't present your points simply, then do you really know your own points?
Read my mind. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so funny, man. And it's not even that it's not that it's funny, but when we find parallels like this between some of the best thinkers in the world, that's like why I mean now. So I feel like maybe sometimes you should question it and do your own research, but the depth that Josh Waitzkin goes into, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Tim Ferriss, Jordan Peterson, like the depth that they go to of their research leaves them very solidified, and like lets me then recommend them to other people, and then us be able to talk to it here. And for the people listening, hopefully, if you haven't done it yet, you start wanting to go dive into some of these people, because they're amazing, and Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, Jocko Willink, all these guys, their minds are amazing. And the cool thing is you don't even have to pick their brain. They're giving you like their information for the most part. They're giving you their research, their experience. Speaking of experience, I actually had a good conversation with my dad on the way home before meeting you guys right now. We're talking about not careers. Oh, ice cream man.
Pause.
Right. Elote.
Man.
Shoot. I missed it because of that damn elote thing.
You're talking about your dad and conversation.
Yeah, because we were on our way back. I'm trying to remember, because it had to do with some of the moves that are gonna happen soon, and I was it had to do with business and leadership. Oh well, I had brought up what me and Bryan were talking about last week, as far as possibly at some point within the next 5 years holding these leadership / financial literacy conferences or class-esque situations or assemblies for high school students. And my thing was, we need experience.
Yes.
That's the only thing that's keeping us from doing it now. And
Agreed.
Going to schools and saying, hey, we know this. You should let us talk to your students. And it's like, well, what experience do you have? Well, I'd substitute teach.
And I've said it before, like at some point, me and you talked about sort of like a consulting, type of role. And it's like, well, fuck, like really you need credibility to, get your name out there and be able to say, we can, give you advice on this because we've done it, or,
Right.
So, but yeah, I've mentioned it before where it was like, dude, we need credibility.
We
need something.
So this is another point. So the muster's coming up, 003 muster in Austin. And when I found it out, and I even looked, of course, the price. I mean, it's not an outrageous. For me, it's definitely worth it. I even told Bryan, I'm like, I will sleep in my car if I can go to that damn conference. I don't even care. And even Eddie, he's like, hey man, you can take the day off. We have a gig at Hills that day, already planned, already scheduled. And so that was a situation, and I told my dad, because my mom was like, no, like you can't go because it's expensive, right? I'm like, it is. And she's like, I know you want to go, I know why you want to go, but not yet, right? And I said, no, because the reasons why you probably think I want to go are probably not the reasons I want to go, because I've read the book 4 times. I listened to every single Jocko podcast. I listen to other people that have interviewed Jocko or Leif. So I I understand the principles to where I am implementing them now. What I'm looking for when I do make a muster, which probably will be, I'm now going to plan for a muster next year, probably in San Diego because Jocko has his jiu-jitsu gym over there. So I would love to go train over there with Jocko and like some of those guys over there. So that's kind of my 1 year goal. Anyways, but for this experience would be meeting business people that are yearning for the same mindset and leadership, because it's a leadership conference, you know. I argue that it's gonna sell out. So it would be saying I would go. It would be 399 people and myself, and I have 48 hours to meet everybody. You know, like that. That would be my goal, and that's where we tied in. That's where I tied in at least. Meeting people that could, who knows what that would hold. Meeting people from all over Texas and all over the U.S. that maybe they couldn't make the last muster in New York City, but they can go to Austin, so they're going to fly in. You know, they're going to fly in from wherever they're from, or maybe their company's going to fly them in because that's just the better route, because the company can't afford to bring Jocko and Leif to the company, so they're going to send one person out, one leader out to bring this information back. But that's where we then dived. This is what I was gonna say. That's where we dived into the whole experience thing that led to. He's like, man, my dad's like, man, in 15 years, you know, you guys, I think you guys will know. And he's like, shit, in 10 years, he's like, at the rate you're reading and you're going, and then interacting with Bryan and Eddie, and then retracting to the gym and doing everything else. He's like, within 10, and I'm like 3 to 5. You know, like I have a way smaller window, and 10 would be okay with me, but if we can keep moving, you know, I see in 3 to 5, I think it's very possible, you know, because at this point, and we've mentioned this, we're like getting older, and I'm only looking forward to that because I'm only gonna know more things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in 3 years, who freaking know? We don't know. So like, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's why I wanted to tie into the experience with this point that I brought, that we had talked about, of experience that then leads to wanting to educate students in financial literacy and leadership, and only those 2 points, because that's what I focus on. I focus on leadership, and Bryan focuses on financial literacy, and that's what it would revolve around. What that would turn into is gonna amaze me, because it's definitely a possibility. Because right now nothing's out of question. Everything's up for grabs at the moment, and the whole point is just to keep learning and keep moving.
And I know there's attempts. There's already things out there for financial literacy, either done by, I know. This wasn't research. I think they were actually trying to go out and make presentations. But the College of Business here at UTRGV,
okay.
Well, back then UTPA, they were out there trying to give presentations on financial literacy. I know my bank has done a couple. So I know there's already things out there, but I still don't think it's enough. I wish it was like on a much larger scale, to where it reaches the majority of you know, students mainly, because
yes.
I feel like a lot of students get out of high school and either go straight into the workforce or go into college without really knowing anything about their own bank account. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and how any of those things work, or you know, where to keep their money. Should they just stash it under the mattress?
savings account,
or maybe they should start investing it, and you know, and some information on that. So I really, that's something I'd really like to do. You know, not that it's not being done, but I feel like it should be done on a larger scale, because it's part of your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. You feel like it's not done enough here?
I don't know. Like I don't. I guess the fact that I don't know if it's being done enough says it's not being done enough.
Fair.
Like if I could say with 100% certainty, yes, it's being done enough,
and these people are doing it,
then it would be, yeah, then it would be enough. But I don't think like the majority of the population here in our community is receiving like this information. The majority of like students, you know.
Right. I don't know if this is the kind of financial literacy, like or literacy. Is that what you said? Sorry, literacy. I'm like, English is weird to me lately. I don't know if this is the kind of thing you're going towards, but I hear like a lot of like complaints sometimes. It comes in waves, and when it does like come, these complaints like come all at once, I feel like. But I feel like I see a lot of people going like, why didn't they give us like a class in high school about how to do your taxes or how to do this and do that and do that, right?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily. I mean, you can hire somebody, or you can do your own taxes on
Yeah.
on like apps and stuff now.
TurboTax,
So it's not-
one example.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily on how to do your taxes, but at least the concepts behind taxes, like why you pay taxes, where they're going to, or like and then retirement accounts. I get a lot of questions from my peers, like about retirement accounts and stuff like that. And there's a lot of penalties and taxation that goes into that when you take a distribution or if you cash out early. So I feel like it's more of kind of real life things, and not necessarily how to do your taxes, but at least the basis behind it. And I guess this is one thing that one of my finance professors in college used to say. He's like, what was it? Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoidance is not. So things like that, like how to minimize your taxable income for your benefit, not because you're trying to screw over the government, because you're not trying to pay taxes, but because it'll benefit your wealth, down the line, or put more money in your pocket now to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to launch your own, fashion design, your own grocery market, whatever. Like it's to help you, I guess, on a personal level. So things like that, like retirement, how to put more money in your pocket, how to invest it, and even like down to, like I said earlier, about some people not knowing how their bank accounts work. So, because I know that's something that I have a friend who teaches in the PSJA district. He teaches 4th grade, and I think this year was his first year teaching 4th grade. So the year before, he was teaching about like debits and credits in your bank account at 3rd grade. I was like, that's
I didn't learn
awesome.
that until like 2 years into like college.
Yeah.
Like, it was deep.
Now I don't know how everybody else feels about it, and I don't know if I think it's too soon, 3rd grade, but the fact that it's being done, that there's an initiative out there already, I think it's awesome.
Can you go into Rich Dad Poor Dad a little bit?
Oh man, it's
Robert
been a while.
Kiyosaki.
It's been a while, but for me, like what Rich Dad Poor Dad was, it was kind of pointing out some things that I had learned already, like in basic accounting, and it was pointing them out, and it's things that I had kind of forgotten with like the amount of detail that I went into, like other areas of finance in college with like retirement planning and like some real estate and stuff like that. So it's things that I had kind of forgotten, but he kind of brings you back, and even at some point kind of like draws pictures and says, this is an asset, this is a liability. And one thing that I think it's from this book, where he mentions that a lot of people consider their home an asset. Oh, crap. But really it's a liability, because it's, as long as you're living in it, like it's not making you money. You're spending money on that house. So a house is an asset if it's generating you income. Like if you renting it out, or if you're gonna flip it and sell it, that's when it becomes an asset. And I think that's really important. And I think another example was like a car. Like and I feel like everybody, well, I don't know about everybody, but this is like a huge thing. Or like, when did I hear about this? Someone told me like a new car or a car in general is actually like the worst investment you can make. And it's because you're just going to like basically throw money at it. It's not going to make you any money. And it has like the worst depreciation rate.
Yes.
So he kind of brings you back to little things like that we maybe forget in like our everyday lives, especially with kind of all the distractions we have now. And so Rich Dad Poor Dad, he kind of compares how his like rich dad raised him and how his poor dad raised him. His poor dad he had like a doctorate's degree, and it was his biological dad. And his rich dad was actually lesser educated and was his best friend's dad, but taught him from a very young age about business and, everyday like finances. And that's how the rich dad made his money, just kind of working and being smart about his finances. And his poor dad was just always like, safe route, I'm going to go to school and get a job, but he never made any money.
Yeah, I watched this video that can be found on YouTube. And if you type in just Robert Kiyosaki, which is Kiyossaki, and it says how to get out of debt, or how to lower your debt and become rich, something like that. Either way, it's along those lines. It'll come up, Rich Dad Poor Dad. But in this video, he also brings up like mindset, where once you say out loud, once you think, oh, I can't afford it, then you can't afford it. What you want to flip, and he says it's simple. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, how can I afford it?
Yeah, I think that's something he brings in the book too, where it's like you kind of set a goal, and instead of I guess dismissing it, you say, how can I do this, and then you'll do it. And there was one story in the book also that he says his rich dad had him and his friend work for him basically for free, and that was like one lesson. It's like, this is how you're gonna become rich. You're gonna work for free. And I was like, well, how does that even make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And I think he was like 10 years old. He's like, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm working my butt off here, like hours out of my day after getting out of school. Like, working my butt off for like hours a day, just stocking shelves with these products, and I'm not making any money. And that led him to, I forgot what it was that they had. So let's say it was like they had like empty aluminum cans there at the store, and because he was spending so much time at the store, he noticed, and he asked if he could take those, and then he'd go and like cash them out for money. And it was like, well, that was the lesson. Because you're not making any money here, you're gonna try to figure out how to have more like streams of income. And so now I remember he started like a library in his bedroom of like baseball cards or comics or something like that. And so these comics, I think they were old comics that at the store they were getting rid of, they're going to trash. So he said, can I have them? He took them home and charged like 10 cents per person to come in and just read the comics in his room. And he made a bunch of money like that while he was working for free at the store. So it was like, I was like, damn, this guy. And that's been kind of like one argument. I know I had this kind of like inner debate with myself, like, how do you know, or is it actually, are you hurting yourself by asking for a raise? Like, could you just keep your, quote unquote shitty pay and find other ways of making money? Like, if you just ask for a raise, then maybe you're gonna become content with that and not try to further yourself in any other aspect.
Right.
You're gonna be satisfied with that one stream of income. So rather than ask for a raise, figure out how else you can make money and diversify.
One thing that, because I used to argue, yes, you should ask for a raise to get more and whatnot. And now, because they basically own you for that time that you're there, so when they give you a raise, you owe them more time. That's the way I think about it now. Before I was like, no, you should ask for a raise, like this bullshit. Because I did it myself.
Yeah.
Like, this bullshit. Like to a point to where I'll quit the job and I don't give a shit at that point for that particular situation. But now, it's like, let that be. Give them only that allotted time and use the rest of your time
to make more money.
Yes, to make more money. Find something else that you do like. My cousin, she started baking goods, and she's just selling to like just friends and stuff, but it's leaking. And I told her, because we talked for like 3 hours on Monday, and I was like, keep it organic. I'm like, just keep it like that for now, because it's just a side hustle. I'm like, because I feel like for now, if you try to go social media, if you try to go too like in, you might get overwhelmed, and then you're not going to get the output that you want. You're not going to get the sales that you want because you're expecting all this revenue that's not going to come yet. I'm like, if you keep it organic for now, and you just keep selling, keep making, $6 here, $10 here, whatever, however she charges, just keep it organic. I'm like, if they're good, people are telling people anyways. You're still getting orders.
Word of mouth is also still one of the best ways.
Number one. It's still number one, aside from like, to me, that's number one, and ads, because ads are so cheap right now that I would argue for ads. Because I think for the last podcast, 2 podcasts ago, so it will be episode 17. I think it's not a lot, but for 64 views, I paid like $1.78 or something. It was like 3 cents per view. Super cheap. That's because it went up a penny too. Like I marked that. Like, fuckers, it went up a penny, but it's okay. It's still 3 cents. It's not even 5. It's not even a nickel. Per view. And I don't know if I explained when you've been here, but like the cost per view they only charge you when the viewer clicks and watches at least 30 seconds of the video, so you don't get charged until that point.
Gotcha.
I did watch this guy who, and he has a decent. He has like 40,000 followers on his YouTube channel, but he gave his opinion on Ty Lopez, Gary Vee, and some other guy. Ramsey something. You know Ramsey something?
No.
Or something Ramsey? Mike Ramsey? Jordan Ramsey? I don't know. Anyways, there's a Ramsey there. Either way, so when he got to Ty Lopez, because he did Ty Lopez last because that was like his biggest deal, and he's like, at some point he's like, I don't want to argue for him, but he's a social media marketer. Like that's what he does, right? And he's like, every time you skip an ad, that lets him keep those 3 cents to then find somebody that's gonna like his ad and then go buy his product. So as long as you keep skipping the ad, as opposed to like letting him gain his deal but still not buying his product, then you've taken now his 3 cents. So he doesn't have those 3 cents to spend on somebody else. So it's kind of made me rethink skipping ads, because at least for me, and we've talked about this I think last week, where if like any type of hashtag or search, like where it's business, finance, like that's what mine revolves around: business, finance, leadership, some music, but not too much anymore. So I get generally the same 4 or 5 ads, right? And 4 of them are from Ty Lopez.
Yeah.
4 out of the 5 ads are from Ty Lopez. And I always skip ad. Last night when me, you, Danny, and Yoli were hanging out, and I'm like, fucking Ty Lopez, I'm gonna have YouTube. Like, damn it,
like
skip
3 or 4.
skip ad. It's like, damn it, I just couldn't get out of it. But then listening to that guy and his his point of view and his rationale to why you should listen to ads, or at least let the ads play out, it made sense to me at least. That's like, man, I'm gonna rethink skipping ads, because like, well, yeah, you don't have to buy his product, but at least you won't get his ad for a while. You can let it sit for the next one. Because I think the generation of that ad also accumulates based on that. Like if you watch the ad, like they maybe give you another one, or they give you a new one or something like that. I think there's some type of an algorithm or something that does that. If you watch that ad, then you'll get another one and you go from there. So I'm gonna test that, but that's the general synopsis of ads and ad revenue and trying to get away from ads. Well, to get away from ads, you need to actually watch ads, not skip. Which goes back to SAT theory, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure do hate those ads, though.
Yeah, absolutely. They're annoying as hell, especially when they're from the same person.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like literally the same ad.
I hate that, like, very rare occasion I'll online shop. So, like, for instance, whenever I bought my Whiskey Town shirt on eBay, the only ads that would pop up on my Facebook or on Google or whatever were always, like, Whiskey Town products. It's like, stop!
Yeah.
I got what I wanted. Leave me alone.
Yeah, pretty much, though. Just selling all of your information to companies. It's great.
That's 2017 for you.
Yeah.
And 16 and 15. It's
No
been happening
kidding.
for a while.
Yeah, it's been happening. We're just way more. It just finally caught up to where it's like it's a thing now, at least in our situations at this moment. Because 2 years ago I was in college still, so that was that.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think word of mouth is still the best?
I think it gives a big like a better. It gives it more credibility because it's coming from somebody that you trust more than likely.
ad
Yeah.
or-
Yeah. Like for example, if I had heard, I don't know, about a local restaurant on like Instagram or Twitter, like it just came up on my feed, I'd be like, whatever. Like someone paid to bring this to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you or Andy or someone else in my circle of friends told me about it, someone whose opinion I value, then I'd be like, well, there's some weight to this suggestion. I'll check it out.
There's a Neil Strauss idea, and it's affirmation. So you trust the person more. And in his case, we're the influencers. We're more likely to change his influence either which way to then buy or not buy the product based on our opinions, because he trusts us with our opinions. So that gives him affirmation to make a decision on that product.
Yeah.
So, hey, that cake is good. And then you're like, hey, I want to order one. Was it really that good? Like, yeah, dude, you should get one. Done. Sell. Done. Boom.
Yep.
Man, I was watching reruns of Shark Tank because I feel like that's pretty much the only thing I watch on television except for the Spurs playoffs games lately. But even then, I've just kind of given up. So, because we all know how that's going. Sidebar, though, Golden State did blow a 3-0 lead last year.
They did, yeah.
Just saying. Anyway, I was watching this rerun of Shark Tank, and this girl was explaining about how they've really dialed in on their customers. It's online retail service, e-commerce, and without getting too much of what they do as a business, or getting into too much of what they do as a business, like she basically just like would always ask her customers what they thought of her product, and she would go off of that feedback, and she'd have like her little algorithm and data she'd enter from that, and off of that make decisions. And so now she like has this huge like following, really loyal fan base where things spread through word of mouth very rapidly. And well, she was doing all of this via social media, right? Basically taking surveys via social media. And I think this episode came out in like 2012 or 2013, so it was like a while back now. And Lori, one of the sharks, was super impressed with that, like to the point where she said, "I feel like I learned something from you today about how to run a business, like as far as using social media to, like ask your customers what they think of your products, and then going off of the data you get from that." And I was just like, really? I was just like, I feel like that's a given. Like in my mind, that seems like a very obvious thing to do. Maybe it wasn't so obvious back then, but I don't know.
Ultimately, that if that's something new to her, then that it just wasn't, and that's interesting because like, where it's obvious. One thing that Echo Charles brought up, he's on Jocko podcast. He's you could say the program director. He just basically helps put the podcast together for Jocko. One thing that he argued against Jocko for the sake of like a legitimate argument was the curse of knowledge. That's what he called it, the curse of knowledge. And something that makes sense. And I said this for the past year. It doesn't make sense. You don't know what 1 + 1 is until the teacher teaches you what 1 + 1 is, or you learn it through. Now students can learn it through YouTube, and you can learn what 1 + 1 is. You can learn anything on YouTube. But that rationale of you don't know. I mean, some people don't know, and even Echo said like, Jocko, you might not understand this. Like at this point, because Jocko's just going. He has his own little like freight train of like mindset and thoughts, because he also has his own. He has his self-discipline that he just does things, and that's just his rationale. There's no, as far as for him as an individual, there's no other way about it, right? Than self-discipline, getting things done. But ultimately, Echo's argument was factual because especially for civilians, civilians don't have the same lifestyle as military guys. It's totally different, and Echo tied in really good because Jocko, before this point, Jocko had said where like these military guys that are coming out of the service and now creating their own jobs, like when they're dealing with civilians, you cannot look down on a civilian for being a civilian. It's like everybody chose their own path.
Yeah.
So that's what he started with. That was like a ways before. And this was a 3-hour podcast. It was a great freaking podcast. Anyways, so then Jocko said that let's say 45 minutes before, and then Echo tied it in later. 45 minutes later, where he's like the curse of knowledge. Like it's a real thing, and for me it ties in perfectly because it's like 1 + 1 does not equal 2 until you get taught. It's the same thing. Super awesome. Oh shit.
There was one thing one of my former supervisors used to say. He'd say, I'm not going to tell you I can't do something. I just don't know how right now. I can do whatever I want as long as I learn, I gain that knowledge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So let's tie in Jordan Peterson again. So his last point? Technically his last point of that 30-minute video was shaping yourself. And ultimately, if I could summarize this part into maybe 2 sentences, 2 or 3 sentences, it was create the heaven on earth you want now, create the hell on earth that you can imagine, like with everything going wrong, everything you can imagine going wrong, and then like just use that to then template your life, which then goes to not even the curse of knowledge, just knowledge, using that, learning, growing, and I guess I just want to say, because I feel like that shaping yourself then ties into what we're talking about, that knowledge and then everything else we've been talking about. This is also that we've learned that there are a multitude of parallels now, and I like you sent I think on the group text where I think it was a video and you put parallels in all caps, or maybe you sent it to me individually, and it's like, yes, like that's what we're looking for. We're looking for parallels to see, what people around the world are finding that are similar to our mindset, or maybe have altered our mindset, has a profound meaning or truth to it that it's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. The Lori thing. Oh, I didn't think about using social media or the way that she organized social media to then calculate for instant feedback from her clientele.
Trying to find out what I sent you now. I want to know.
So yeah, I don't remember if it was a group chat or if it was the text. Well, I'm gonna continue on this shaping yourself. So some of the questions that he brings up is like, what do you want for a career? What would make your life meaningful? What do you want for your family? What do you want from your family?
What was this?
Oh,
It's
so that's
from
the
the
C.S.
Four
Lewis,
Loves, yeah.
C.S. Lewis book. What do you want for an intimate relationship? I'm just gonna read all these questions. How are you going to take care of your mental and physical health? And if you have any drug, alcohol problems, and I put abuse problems. Period. Obviously, it's not drugs and alcohol is just the minimum of like what there's actually out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said doing 15 minutes of writing and tying all that stuff in, and because then it's interesting to me, Eddie, how at the end of that video he ties in his product. Like you watch for 25 minutes and he ties in a product that I'm very compelled to use, but he gave me enough questions like the ones I just read that I'm like, well, I can start with that before moving on to that. Because then he even says 15 minutes of writing about what life could be 3 to 5 years, and that's where because I don't know if was it here? Yeah, he did it here. So 15 minutes of writing about what life could be in 3 to 5 years if it was laid out the way you wanted it to be for someone you deeply cared about. So having that it not being about you, but if you could have a utopia for the person you love the most, what would that life be? And then I wrote, creating a heaven to aim for, and even if there's a little bit of suffering to deal with, but ultimately like the ultimate heaven that you still, because I think the suffering he says is like, it's basically the stuff you can't account for. It's all the little things that you can't, and I've argued this, you cannot find every single detail because then you'll never create the product. If you look for every single, I'm not saying screw, but maybe if you're trying to calculate depreciation before you even make the product, it's almost impossible. I would have to say it's almost impossible to do that. So that's what creating a heaven to aim for, even with a little bit of suffering. And then what if all the bad things augured you to the ground? If everything in life like slid away from you, if it was a hell you're heading toward, what would that be? And then the final thing was to turn a desirable future into an implementable reality. Which then he brings up the product. As soon as he says that, then the product comes up, and it's like $15, which to me is reasonable. But like I said, I'm gonna see what I can get done with it because, like I said, there's plenty of questions here that we can all think about and be conscious about as we're going. It's like, man, is this? And once you write it out, okay, is this part of the plan? Is it going to lead me there? Am I going to deviate? How long am I? Those are the things that you can then mitigate, because then you can make a conscious decision to say, no, I'm not going to go buy that donut because it's not healthy for me ever, and that's it. Something as simple as that.
Can we do something else besides a donut? Because I have a very strong affection towards donuts.
Donuts? Oh man, really? Okay. Do you like
Beer.
Not beer either, please.
tequila?
Okay. I can live without that. I can absolutely live without tequila.
There it is, tequila. Tequila is the poison, ladies and
Kill
gentlemen.
ya.
It will.
I have a really big fixation on donuts.
Really?
Yeah, I love donuts. Well, my whole family, we all love donuts. Like
Donuts,
I'll go
donuts
to
is your thing?
yeah, I'll go to HEB at like 10 o'clock at night just to go get donuts.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Have you ever had like any weird donuts?
How do you?
Like something, I guess, that's not of like the traditional like toppings or glaze or.
I always stick to my main thing. So like the regular glazed donut or the chocolate frosted donut.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
No, because I've heard of some with like they like put bacon on them and
No.
and others like I can't even think of it. I just know that there's some crazy stuff out there.
No, thank you. Man, sometimes I eat like donuts for breakfast, but it's really a dessert item. I feel like it should be a dessert item.
That's so crazy.
I was reading through Neil deGrasse Tyson's tweets on Friday, I think, and he went like on a little spree of expressions of immaturity hashtag, and he had like, if I have the choice, like, if the host, I think like the dinner host is what do you call it? Basically said if she's dumb enough to leave the dessert on the table before she serves like the main course, I'm gonna eat it. And like expressions of immaturity.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to follow that hashtag and find him. That's so great.
There were several that were pretty funny on there.
It's so funny. What's the craziest thing you guys have seen on social media?
Ugh, good lord.
Good, I mean, positive or negative?
I don't even know.
just
I don't
if-
even
if-
know what defines crazy anymore.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
So-
Positive or negative? Like for me, it's the same way I use the term consequences because I was taught this. The seed was planted for me in college where there's consequences. There's good and bad. Consequences has had such a negative light when you look at the it's both. It's just the action, the reaction from the action,
Right.
and there's good and bad reactions.
Sure thing. Craziest thing I've seen lately is it's gonna be really general. It's not very specific, but this tends to do it for a lot of people. Social media tends to bring this out in a lot of people. Insecurities. I don't know why. That's always, in my eyes, crazy. I guess I just don't know why people don't realize they're expressing their own insecurities in a public platform. That's not something I feel like I'd be caught doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I know for sure. I guess there's people of all ages where they use social media to gravitate, people to either enable them or just feel sorry for them, and the victims that we know, or the victims that in general we know, that are out there, posting, like you said, everything about their personal life or otherwise.
So is it almost like some people, I guess, with what you just described, they're kind of trying to create like a fan base for themselves, like some type of following.
They want sympathizers. They want sympathy. They want
Yeah.
they want to say, no, it's okay what you did. You're in the right all the time, whether they're right or wrong.
Right.
Or the one-sided story, or anything like that, or anything victim like, oh, can you give an example just so we can kind of
Sure. Some dude went through like a really quick 2 week or 3 week. I don't know. I wasn't keeping tabs on the days and the hours, but it seemed like a really quick fling he had with some girl, and then he was really heartbroken over it. So he was posting all of this insecure, sorry, I'm not gonna be nice about it, a whole bunch of insecure bullshit about this other girl. When I mean, I don't know their life story. I don't know her story, his side of the story, whatever. But it's very apparent to me that she probably just didn't do really much of anything wrong, or at least didn't do anything that constituted her deserving anything he was saying about her or saying about it wasn't even really a lot about her. It was a little bit about her. Most of it was just him with a whole bunch of insecurities about life and how we are as a generation. He went on this whole thing about oh, this generation doesn't know how to love and doesn't know how to do all this and all this bullshit.
So see, perfect example of he wants the other girls who are dumb in this situation, and they're like, oh, it's okay, or maybe some people on social media that he has his friends that aren't really his friends. That, hey man, it's all good, bro. It's all you'll be all right, bro. That's what I mean. Enablers, sympathizers, why? Shut the fuck up. Get the fuck over it.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, and that was one that I couldn't help but probe into, so I started asking him questions.
Well, yeah, why not?
And I was just kind of even I brought this up earlier about agree to disagree. It's a lazy way of saying I don't really give that much of a shit. And he just he came to that two exchanges in, two sentence exchanges in or comment exchanges in, and he was like, oh, we'll just have to agree to disagree, bro. I was like, no, fuck that. I'm not agreeing to disagree on shit. You're wrong. I'm right. Get over it. That's not literally word for word what I said, but when he said agree to disagree, I was just whatever. I'm just gonna leave it be. But no, that was one moment where I really just wanted to say agree to disagree is just such bullshit. You're just wrong, and you're being a dumbass. Get over it. Sorry. I don't know. Some people just do things that I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but some people just do things that just make me scratch my head and be like, are you fucking serious? I'm I don't know. I don't know about some people. Some people really worry me. They make me worried about them procreating. It's just make sure you don't procreate. Please don't procreate.
Bryan, you got anything as far as social media?
Man, I don't know.
I mean, I know.
I said, and when I don't know what crazy is anymore. It's just I've seen a lot of things on both ends of the spectrum. So it's kind of I just take it as this is what it is now. This is what the times have brought. So I don't know, but that's a good one. That's a good insight. I never really thought about it that way. Now I'm gonna be analyzing everybody's fucking posts and tweets and you're insecure. Eddie said you're insecure, so
So you must be. And I trust word of mouth, his word of mouth. So,
yeah.
so
I
it must
value
be.
his opinion. So
I'm
You're
trying
wrong.
to I'm trying to find it so I can just read it out loud. Because that's how like pissed off I am about this. Maybe he deleted it. It seems like he maybe deleted it.
oh man, I love that though. You can delete stuff.
Man, that
Yeah, I had that experience this morning.
that
Deleting
shouldn't
stuff.
be a
Oh.
thing.
That's so funny.
It kind of sucks when people are able to delete like shitty things they said publicly. That's not cool.
Like cool stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he just deleted it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not important. Yet I'm still scrolling. Still going for it. No, he definitely deleted it. It was definitely sooner than this much. Man, okay, we're just going to go into that then, because I hate it when people do that. You can't just retract something. I mean, you can retract something you said that you maybe didn't mean. We say things we don't mean all the time. But, like, it's just still not cool. Just think, it could just be all avoided if you just thought before you said shit.
Be more.
Like,
I was gonna say just be more conscious. I will be honest with everybody. Like I try not to. I really try. I really like. I've said this before where I talk to myself and like speaking of. I said this last week because of Neil Strauss. He says basically on the lines of like when you're making a decision, especially when you're talking to yourself about a big decision. Because I said before where like I talk to myself very poorly and very badly, and he says you should talk to yourself the way you want someone to approach you, that you don't know yet, and so that in particular has helped me like being more conscious of thinking, contemplating for a second, yes or no, and then either saying or then not saying anything at all. But I will be honest and say that I've been very conscious on the words that I've been trying to choose lately.
mm-hmm. Good way to be. Well, at least he, like, maybe had, like, a change of heart and retracted it. I guess I should look at the positive or something. Maybe he just, like, had a change in his mode of thinking. And he's like, you know what? Eddie's right.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't disagree after all and was like, this was all unnecessary, so let me just go ahead and.
Well, people get so caught up in their self-defense mechanisms, and it's important to realize when you're being defensive. And it's fine that it's fine to be defensive. We're trying to protect ourselves, right? Like, that's a very natural thing to do. But you got to be able to drop your ego and let it go, man. Hopefully he did. Hopefully that's why I couldn't find it.
But see, the thing is that if he had any sympathizers, maybe he didn't want to argue anymore and he deleted it. But if you do have sympathizers, you do have enablers, it doesn't change the mindset.
That's the, I think you just said exactly what I was trying to formulate earlier about why I hate that you're able to delete these things now. Because in real life, in conversations, like, we can't delete the things we say to other people, you know? Yep. So, like, the fact that we can do that, it just totally changes everything.
We're going to call it there. I think we hit a good macro points that we then just detailed out. Yeah. It felt like forever since we've had all three of us here.
It has felt like forever.
It feels like a while because
it feels like forever just since I've seen you guys in general.
Fair,
Damn.
yeah. No, definitely. It feels, oh, man. What gets me is as fast as time is going, like when we have moments like this, like I don't know how much we're gonna keep most of it. So let's say around an hour and a half of material, right? Around an hour and a half of conversation. When we pause for this hour and a half and we're here and we're zoned in, it's like, dang, it feels like forever, you know. But yet, you know, like okay, when we leave here, when you guys leave here, and we go back to our quote unquote day to day or whatever we're gonna do next,
Laundry.
It then just goes, you know. Then it just freaking goes, and then we'll come back in a week or whatever, or however it happens. What I've come to compromise with is that just try to record, and whoever's available, you know, get something done. Still maximize the value, and you know that's the main thing, of course, maximizing value. So regardless if, like, let's say Eddie's busy or Brian's busy or whatever, or maybe if something happens that I can't do it a certain day, we have to move it. Just go with it. We just go with the flow. It's not even. I don't even want to say it's adapting. Just going with the flow. Just in that case, it's still, as long for me, as long as the episode gets released by Thursday morning at 4 a.m. 4 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever. That's I guess because that's my macro goal. I'm good with letting little things just it's okay. No one's gonna die. No one's gonna the podcast is still not gonna be released till Thursday anyways. No matter what, like that's the day that I release. So no matter what, it won't be out till Thursday. So we have technically until Wednesday to do whatever. But anyways, we'll call it there. If you guys wanna leave your social media handles, we can start with Eddie. And also leave as far as like any shows coming up leading up to the album release. That's coming up soon.
Yes. So I've got a long one for you people. Tuesday night, I feel like Joe Rogan. I feel like Joe Rogan's doing his long list of tour dates. Tuesday, we're going to be at the Comedy Club in Philadelphia. Whatever. Anyway, catch me there with young Tony Hinchcliffe. Whole bunch of Joe Roganisms. Anyway. Tuesday night, I'll be in Harlingen, Texas at the Prelude, opening up for a couple of finalists from the New Folk competition that's put on by the Kerrville Folk Festival, which is arguably one of the bigger folk festivals in the world. So that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a good show. Again, it's happening Tuesday night at the Prelude in Harlingen, Texas. Wednesday night, I'll be at Yerberia Cortura. Man, my Spanish is terrible.
I'll say you're working on your Spanish, but never mind.
No, not really. I'm just actually trying on this one. Wednesday night, I'll be at Yerberia Cultura. That's me not trying. But anyway, I'll be there in downtown McAllen. I think I'm playing around midnight, which is kind of late. But for all you vampires, we'll be out there on Wednesday night. And, I'll be there. The band won't be there. I'll be with the band prior to. But I'll be out there afterwards doing a solo set for about 30 minutes. And then Thursday night, I'll be at the South Texas Museum of History for their monthly happy hour shindig, which Bryan and Andy have gone to, and they even say it's really cool. So if they say it, it must be a real cool thing, so you've got to go for sure. Not just because I'm playing, but because you'll have some good beer and some good wine and have a really, a lot of great fun.
And barbecue.
Oh, and barbecue, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And anyway, you'll just have a lot of great fun because the museum staff are like the friendliest people, coolest people on the planet, and they really know how to throw a party. So it's a lot of great times. And then Saturday night, we will be full band in the Ingleside, Texas area at Backwoods Saloon, which it feels like forever since we've been there, but it's been about a month, maybe a little over a month.
Just about.
But yeah, it feels weird that we have not made that drive recently, so I'm really excited about that one and to be back out there with the Ingleside people. So with all that being said, new album comes out June 16th. It's called 17 Hours. You can find 2 singles on iTunes and Spotify, wherever you stream or download music right now, called Poor Man's Son and When I Was Young. Be on the lookout for the third and final one, and then more info coming on that soon. Probably if you're listening to this on Thursday, it's very, very soon. So anyway, that's my spiel. You can find me on my personal Facebook page. You can find me on my artist Facebook page if you just look up Eddie Signs. And then Instagram at Eddie_Signs3 and Twitter at Eddie Signs3. Bryan, your turn.
I don't have any shows upcoming, so...
He's working on it.
But if that changes, you can find out on my Twitter and Instagram at Bryan Alejandro _. It's BRYANALEJANDRO _ And like I mentioned in the last podcast too, if you guys need any Excel deals you want me to take care of, you can find me on Fiverr.com, FIVERR.com. Under Bryan Alejandro, no underscore.
I might take you up on that. Just saying.
It's handy, man. It's handy, man. And it's convenient for both parties. I feel it's good for freelancers. Have a segue to get into the any type of market. And it's good for people who need to delegate out. You don't want to spend 8 hours on an extensive Excel sheet, spreadsheet. And Bryan's your man. He knows a lot about all that shit. That's all I'm gonna say because I don't know the specifics of Excel. I just know there's a bunch of equations and shit. Anyways, so yeah. So actually, I'm just gonna say as far as the South Texas History Museum, is that what it's called?
Museum of History.
Museum of History. On Thursday, they're having what's it called? Sorry, what's it called?
Well, if they're listening to this on Thursday, this is tonight. So
Yeah,
tonight, folks.
technically. So you'll hear this just perfectly. So if you do hear this, there's no excuse to not go.
And all of my previous dates mentioned will not apply because they will be of the past already by the time everyone's hearing this.
Didn't even realize that. Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry I didn't stop you.
That's interesting. So, well, hopefully by this time you've then seen Eddie signs, and you got maybe some social media on that too. So technically tonight, Thursday, they're having their monthly. It's beer tasting, wine tasting. Last time me and Bryan went, and we got to do like the scavenger. It wasn't a scavenger hunt. It was just like a. I guess like a course, what would you call it? Like a course?
I don't even know, but it was
like a little adventure
cool.
course type deal.
Yeah, and we got to learn about the history.
Yeah, a lot of
down
stuff
here.
here. Here's stuff that's here. Like, yes, you can go and like read the stuff, but it was just unique hearing. Especially for me, it was that old guy, the one doing like the cotton.
The boat.
Yeah, like cotton. Like, I mean, that guy's he's been around. Like, he knows like obviously all this history, which they all did. But like for me, just the fact that he's an older gentleman, in this museum.
It's a fun, interesting way to learn about all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But
and also meet people. We got to meet two girls that are really cool. Emily and Ellie. One's from Michigan and Ohio.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Michigan and Ohio.
So they were, and honestly, because we were the top two finishing teams this last month. So
Of course you were.
we're gonna go back and try to win. This time we're no tiebreakers. We're gonna go try to win. So
as long as that other team isn't there, I think we're good.
As long as you have freaking powerhouse, two people with powerhouse, they killed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we will be at least for now, the plan is to be at that on Thursday night. It starts at I think it's 6 to 8. I think the little adventure deal starts at 6:30. Eddie will probably start playing around 6:15 or so, 6:15.
Something like that. I'll be singing stuff.
Yeah, he'll be there, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I paid for that guy.
Be pouring my little heart out.
Hey, badass reverb though, high ceilings. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't have to do it. I already went in and like sound checked, and I don't have to put any effects on anything.
You're
it's so
good.
pure.
Yeah, you're good.
So great.
If anything, you can put like the monitor, a monitor facing you, and just let it ring out.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. So anyway, so we'll be out there hanging out 6 to 8, and then you'll catch me with Eddie on Saturday for Ingleside, Texas. Anybody from Corpus, Ingleside, Aransas Pass, Rockport, all that surrounding area, all that coastal bend area, we'll be out there hanging out Saturday night at Backwoods Saloon. If you want to catch me, you can catch me in my vlog, which I have. Again, I'll have all these the handles and stuff. Any links. I have my YouTube channel link. I have Eddie's YouTube channel link on the show notes as well now, so you can go to any one of our channels to check out our material. I do post a vlog every day. Just of whatever I've done, sometimes it's interaction with people at work, sometimes it's interaction with Bryan or Eddie, the guys at practice. Just depends on what day we fall. Whatever day it's on, there's a vlog per day, and that's what I do. I do post also this podcast audio on YouTube. I do upload it, the audio with just a picture of moving with life caption. Excuse me. I'm working to get. Not necessarily a live stream, but at least video, and I can post that up first on YouTube, like let's say like a Wednesday or Tuesday, and then upload the audio like normal on Thursday.
That'd be fun.
That'd be the idea. I'm still working on that. I want to see how, because I want the audio to stay consistent and good, because I right now I have the whole system going. I have the audio's legit. It's not, we're not talking into an iPhone like speaker or anything like that. It's legit microphones and whatnot. So anyways, if you want to catch me, my Instagram and Twitter are at Andy Walker underscored lead. That's for Instagram and Twitter. Again, it's Andy Walker underscored lead. Then my Snapchat, if you want to follow my minute to minute stuff, it is Andy Walker lead altogether. And then my Facebook, if you go to the main page I want to start concentrating on, is facebook.com/Andy Walker leads altogether. And you can go and like that page. I now post there first before I post anywhere else. So, follow that page, like it. And, if you have any questions, if you have any cool things or interesting things that you'd like to maybe bring to us, I also post the podcast email. I also put my Tumblr on there as well. which is Kratos, line 4, line all, at tumblr.com. Those are just my thoughts. I haven't posted maybe in a couple weeks. I think it's more because I've been doing my 5-minute journals in the morning and in the afternoon or night. So that's one thing that I guess the last little piece of it, not advice, but just a little tool that's helped me so far with just going and being optimal throughout my day. So anyways, that's enough. That was a lot of information that you'll probably have to like pause and play and pause and play and get all this stuff down. So anyways, most of the stuff's in the show notes. We will see you next time. Well, actually, we'll see you. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe I'll see you the next day. But you'll hear this, and we'll get together. Hopefully next Sunday. We'll see. Anyhow, I will stop blabbering and see you guys next time.